Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the channel. Hope you're all having a fantastic day. So today we're going to do a post-ride inspection. No, not a damage report, a post-ride inspection. So if you didn't watch my last video, I went up to the Honda side-by-side ride in Silverton, Colorado, which is just beautiful. If you've never been there, I highly recommend it. If you don't have a machine, they have machines for rent. I don't know what they cost, but it is well worth the trip. Videos and pictures just don't do that place justice. It is absolutely gorgeous. But that's not why you're here. So post-ride inspection, what does that mean? Well, after every ride, I always like to just do a quick spray off and a post-ride inspection. I look for anything loose, broken, bent, out of place, something not right, clunks, clanks, whatever. And I'm pretty good about it. I actually do them during the ride too. I showed that in the past where I have paint marker I tape, and you can kind of see it there, it's dirty. And I draw lines. That's just something I learned in the military on how to do. And that way when I'm out riding, I can do a quick walk around. And I know if something has moved, backed off, whatever. It gives me a quick 2-minute visual inspection just so everything's going good. I always do that every time we stop. I get some funny looks, but you know what? I don't ever break down. So let's jump right into a post-ride inspection. What am I looking for? Well, first thing, just like I do a walk around, I look at all of my markings. So I go ahead and I spray off the Pioneer. It got a little muddy, pretty dusty up in Colorado. Not too bad. I haven't gone through and completely detailed it, but it is clean enough. So I'll go through and I will jack up the front, the rear, and I will do a shimmy, a shake, whatever. And honestly, I didn't damage anything this ride. The whole ride, the only issue we had was one person got one flat in the sidewall, which is pretty good. What I can tell you is if you look at my tires, now I was in one-wheel drive most of the time. They're a little eaten up on the front, but they're pretty good. They have about 900 miles on them. But now if I go around here to the back, I don't know how well the camera's gonna show, but you can see these treads are really, really eaten up. Not a big deal, that's what tires are for. But that's probably the worst extent of my damage. So a couple things did happen while I was there. One is I had a couple people point out that my toe looked in, my toe looked out, and my steering was just all over the place. And honestly, I could feel it. And a couple videos back, I put a new steering box, an alignment, and new ball joints on this side. So it's kind of miffed. Well, while I was there, I went ahead and I did the steering box adjustment. If you don't know your Pioneer has a steering box adjustment, let me show you on the steering box that we're gonna end up rebuilding. So this is your steering box, and this is how it sits in your Pioneer. This is the driver's side, this is the passenger side. Right here, we'll flip this up, is your adjustment. Now within this, there's some springs and stuff. This threads on in here, and it pushes against the spring. And then you have your locking nut or your jam nut, whatever you want to call it. So in order to adjust your steering box, if you have a little bit of play, what you can do is you can loosen this. Now I don't have the tool showed right there. So I went ahead and I measured this, and it's 40 millimeters. What I did is I took a 41 millimeter socket that I have for my portals, and I backed this off. This is a 14 millimeter. And I actually got 3/4 of a turn. Yes, brand new steering box, I got 3/4 of a turn until it was completely tight. Now I knew I'd over tightened it, but what that means is I tightened it 3/4 of a turn, I tightened the lock nut, and when I would go to drive, the steering was super tight to where my steering wheel, when you would turn it, would not auto center when you let off on it if you're driving forward. So I went back in there, I backed it off about 1/4 of a turn. So a brand new steering box was out 1/2 a turn. Really helps my steering. The other issues was the tie rods. Now you may be saying tie rods, I have the Super ATV heavy duty tie rods, and I do. What you guys may not know is I've done 4 or 5 alignments on this thing since I put the portals on. Originally I thought it was just excess play in the steering box and I didn't adjust it. Well, then we flopped it over on its side, so we replaced the steering box. So there's really nothing wrong with my new steering box. Everything's brand new. So I got it adjusted to 1/2 a turn and it was much better. But there was still something going on with looseness in the steering. I kept hearing it squeak. Well, I went ahead, I tore everything apart on the driver's side and found the tie rod ends were shot. and there's about a 1/16 inch of play. So what does that mean? Well, if I have a 1/16 inch of play here, way out here, there's, you know, 1/2 inch of play, which is pretty bad. And that is why I had such a hard time getting this thing aligned. Because if there was any stress on those, it would be out just a little bit. But in the stationary, it looked aligned. But as soon as we put some weight, put a little stress, that play would pop out. So it looked like I'd be towed out or towed in. I went ahead, I gave Super ATV a call. If you're not familiar, their HD tie rods are only the rod that is warranted for lifetime. That means this piece is the only piece warranted. The inner and the outer are not warranted for lifetime of use. I talked to a very nice lady up there. I said pretty much how much is it gonna cost me to fix this. I may need to go with another brand. These things have literally lasted less than 1,000 miles. I put them on in April, and come on, it's September now, so 5 months. She said, send me a video, and this is the video I sent right here. The driver's side moving, and just for reference, I have somebody holding the steering wheel, and I have this ratchet strapped. So as you saw in the video, I kind of went to the extreme of getting everything tied off so that there was absolutely zero play in the steering box. I had my oldest son holding the steering wheel. I had the wheel cranked all the way and strapped up to the bumper here so that there was no play in the steering box to show that all the play was in the tie rod ends. She emailed me back the next day and said, you know what? We're gonna good faith it and we're gonna give you a free set of tie rod ends, which honestly I didn't expect. So kudos to you, Super ATV, because you stood behind your product. Obviously there was an issue because there's no way I should have that much play in less than 1,000 miles. So other than that, great ride, no issues with this. So one thing that did show up the day before I left was, well, what we fixed. And it is in this box right here, and if you look, genuine Honda parts. So that piece right there is our ROMS section. So we are going to install that today. I'm going to do a time lapse to kind of speed it up because you've seen me do it once before. But in case you're curious on how to do it, I will tell you right now. You have 2 bolts up here that are 14 millimeter. The seatbelt bolts are 14 millimeter. You have a Torx 50 right here. Coming on down, you have a 17 millimeter socket right here and wrench, which you need to go from the inside into more 14s. Then your net are all 10 millimeters. And that is how simple it is to replace this rear section of the ROMS. It is kind of a 2-person job. Getting these bolts up here, kind of a pain, but not a big deal. Now I was asked a couple times on my spare tire mounts. Let me show you that before I get into replacing this. No, this is not the permanent setup, but I had it here for a specific reason. So during the ride, I actually had a passenger over there on the driver's side. So I wanted to put the spare tire on the passenger side. As we know, the exhaust runs down the passenger side, and I had a full-size adult back there. And then I also scooted it back off this romp section so that the individual could see out the window. So I really do like how this is set up. What I don't like is not being able to close the tailgate. I'm gonna redo this and put it off the harness bar. I think that's a little bit stronger point. I can get the tailgate closed. And if I ever want to put people back here, I can easily unbolt it. But let me show you what it looks like. So all I did was take a piece of angle iron and I put 2 stock studs through and welded them on so that we have the lug nuts I'm currently running. So that's nice and in there. And this is in there. I mean, it moves a little bit. It's a 72-pound tire. Now for my jack, it's a little different. I actually had an old RV leveling jack because most automotive jacks don't go as high as I need. They may not go as high as you need either because of suspension travel. So this goes up high enough without putting a block under it to get the Pioneer off the ground. I do carry a block right here, as you can see, just in case I'm in a hole or whatever. So for those of you wondering how did I mount it, well, it's pretty simple. All I did is I took my 1x2 bar, drilled some holes. If you notice here, there's a lip. I got a piece of angle iron that goes around the back. It's actually the same as this, where this sits on. Drilled a couple holes. I have a split washer in there, with just a butterfly nut. And that's it. The beauty of this setup is this is a 19 millimeter right here. So go ahead and lift and lower this jack. Well, that 19 millimeter is also what I have to use for the key for my lug nuts, because they're splined lug nuts. So I can use the same ratchet, breaker bar, whatever I want to lift this up, or I just take the impact gun. So let's go ahead, let's get this unboxed, make sure everything looks good, then we'll start disassembling this and get it put back together. That's it, out with the old, in with the new. We are done. What you didn't see me do off camera is I did go back and I re-torqued everything. I went to the service manual, pulled all of the torque specs I could get, and I torqued them all to the factory specs. And this bolt up here that does that holds the seatbelt, I did put some blue Loctite on there because that's what came from the factory. You could see it on there, so I went ahead and put some blue Loctite off camera. But other than that, I think it looks pretty good. It actually looks too good because that's real shiny new, no scratches. We got scratches, but give me a few rides and we will take care of that. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Again, a big thanks to Super ATV for sending some new tie rod ends, even though they didn't have to. So don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and until next time.